I'm sure many of you know that before I started on YouTube, I was a professional costumer in London's West End and the wider British theatre industry. And it's one of those things that after I got ill, I really missed that part of my creative life of putting on shows. And so I swallowed my professional pride and I got involved with my local amateur dramatic society. You might know it as community theatre. And I've costumed several shows with them over the past couple of years, and it's been one of the best things I've ever done. And I'm so glad I did it. And while I'm not costuming their next production, which is set in around 1905, they have asked me to help make some things, specifically some knitwear. And I've never knitted anything from this period before, so I'm really excited to do some research and start on a couple of Edwardian knitting projects. One of the things that I've been looking at is patterns for what's known as hug me tights. I've also seen them called emigrant's vest, which is very fitting for the characters in the play. I've also seen them called zouave jackets, but my understanding of that is something different trimmed with braid. And I think the only reason that they're called zouave jackets is to do with the shape, because they have a curved front due to the way they're constructed. And the sort of fashionable zouave jackets from the mid 19th century have a curved front. So I was looking for original knitting patterns. The issue with Victorian knitting patterns is they're very vague. The gauge, the weight of the yarn, the needle size, it's all a mystery. And then I saw a picture of Isabella Pitcher from Pryor Retire in one of these little hug me tight emigrant's vests, and it said, oh, this pattern is in the Victorian Dressmaker Volume 2, and I thought to myself, I think I've got a copy of that. I have! So there's also a pattern in here for a cycling jacket, a sort of 1890s cycling jacket, you know the kind. But I don't think that's really appropriate. I don't think that's the sort of sportswear they would be wearing to go on a very long, sad journey. But this little hug me tight jacket is just absolutely, she calls it a zouave sleeveless jacket as well. Oh, the pattern's by Sally Pointer, actually. That's interesting. But I might be able to put this picture here on the screen so you can see it better. It's just perfect for what I want. It's really simply constructed. The instructions are really clear. They give you information about things like gauge and yarn quantity. So I thought rather than trying to figure out one of these vintage patterns myself, I would start with this one and see where we go. The yarn I'm using for this project is a vintage double knit from Pattons. It's a nylon wool blend, so it should be okay to be washed, which is important for theatre, which can get very sweaty. I'm estimating that this yarn is from the mid-70s, as we've got a reference to metric needle size, and the textile industries switched to metric around then. It's kind of a generic grey, which is fine, and in case you're wondering, it came from my mum's yarn stash, so neither stash busting total nor coupons were affected. In Isabella's book, the pattern is given to go with an archery ensemble from 1897 to 1902, so while it's a bit earlier than the play, it should be fine for a working class woman in 1905. As we know, clothes were precious and expensive for most of history, so people hung onto their stuff. So I started by casting on. I'm using German twisted cast on because this jacket is worked in rib and needs to be stretchy, and then we just work in rib. I've done my first 12 inches of ribbing, and now I have to divide for the neck, and then it seems I cast off like central collar stitches and then I increase to create a sort of V-shaped neck. Yeah, so I essentially knit the fronts to be slightly longer than the back and sew it up. All right, so divide for shoulders. So knit 27, cast off 21. 21, is that correct? 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 18, 20, 21. And this is where I get confused because it describes this section that we're about to work on now as the left shoulder, which makes sense here, but when I turn it round to do the next row, it's on the right. So is this the wrong side? Yes. People told me to use a stitch marker. Oh, that's stupid because that's going to flip round, isn't it? That that'll do. So this is the left. Okay. I am about to cast off the second front of my Victorian waistcoat I've been knitting. It looks really small, but then it's so stretchy. I think it will be fine. And actually, I've just double checked the instructions and it recommends blocking it on a dress form, which I've never seen before, but is actually genius. Unfortunately, I've just put my female dress forms in the loft, so don't know if I'll be able to manage that. I mean, I'm pretty confident it will fit the actress. It's very adjustable. So I guess the next step is to cast off and sew it up. Oh, and so far I've used 2 full skeins of yarn and then have this much left. So I think I'm probably going to use a maximum of 3 on this project, and then something contrasting for the border, which is nice. So unfortunately, this yarn didn't come from my stash, it came from my mum's yarn stash, so I can't tick it off the total. But this was such a quick project to get 3 balls of wool off. Mind you, it's double knit. I was going to say maybe I'll make one for myself, but maybe not. Absolute full sunlight, so I apologise, I'm squinting, and I have no idea how it's going to look. But in England, in September, if you get sunshine, you make the most of it. So my little Victorian Hug Me Tight emigrant's vest has finally dried. I think I've done it right. But now I have to crochet the borders, the trims, and the instructions for that, even to say they're a modern interpretation of a historical pattern, are quite vague. But part of it, I guess, depends largely on how you've sewn this together and also your tension. Oh, the person who interpreted this pattern, by the way, is Sally Pointer, who has a YouTube channel and is an excellent textile historian, experimental archaeologist or whatever. And she has loads of really interesting videos about, it's usually Neolithic, prehistoric textiles. I have brought with me a 4 and a 3.5mm crochet hook. I knitted it on a 4, but I think you need to sort of go down when you crochet. I don't really know a size. So 3.5mm I think is the one I'm going to start with, but it very much says in the instructions. You're right. So UK double crochet, US single crochet. Recommended starting with the sleeve openings to get an idea of the tension. So I am just using each selvage stitch as like the chain of the crochet. So I think I'm just going to do a round first of all of just doing that as my spacing, just to see how it turns out with this 3.5mm hook. So this yarn is not ideal for crochet because it's so splitty. Part of me is wondering if that might be a bit tight, but then it is a bit baggy around the arms here. Looks okay, I think. I'm going to do the second round. Oh, scared the pigeon. Okay, so I've done the 3 rows of double crochet, US single, and the only sort of acknowledgement, you might say, to shaping I've made is where this corner was here, where the seams joined. As I joined the round, crochet Crocheting the round always bugs me because sometimes they just like have you go all the way around and sometimes they have you like chain to go up a step. Anyway, I did the method where you chain and I just didn't work into the chain stitch as I came back to it. So I've essentially done a decrease at that corner so that the armhole is slightly shaped, and also we've rounded out that edge a bit. I've essentially done a tiny weeny little dart. And as far as I'm concerned, I think it looks good. I have also just realised that I have been working with the wrong side facing, not the right. So I'll just have to keep it consistent, I think. I've got the crochet hook in my mouth, that's why I sound like that. But let's see. I don't think that's this shaping. It's going to have made it too tight. No, there's still plenty of room in there. So the next steps involve trebles, US double. So this time I think I'm not going to do any decreasing, I'm just going to keep it the same. Yep, that's what I'm going to do. I've just sort of been reading the instructions to decide what that actually means, because they use a contrast colour for the final round, and they didn't really acknowledge that in the instructions. Anyway, the next step is to do trebles all the way around. So we're going to do, that's the first one. Okay, nope, I've missed one. This is the first one, right. And I'm not using one of my special ergonomic nor interchangeable crochet hooks for this, just use the one I could find. As it's not a massive amount of crochet, it's currently working out fine for me. So I've been crocheting around and I've come to my last one, and I've realised obviously this lacy border thing that they've had me do is for a design with multiples of 3 stitches, and I don't have a multiple of 3, so maybe that is something I should have considered. But basically what I'm going to do is I'm just going to make it work, really, because I should skip 2 and then do the next 3 cluster in that one. But I think I'm just going to do a slip stitch to join it to the top of this one and call it good, because the next round should be in the contrast colour, but I haven't decided on what contrast colour I want, or even if I want a contrast colour. So I'm going to finish this one, do all the others, and then see what I think. It's got nylon in, I probably won't be able to snap this. Nope. I'm gonna have to go and get some scissors. Anyone else want to fly their plane? I don't know whether I'm going to be able to get another row without it looking really funny there. I mean, round the fronts and round the neck should be fine, because obviously I've got more room, but is it gonna another inch out like that? Is that gonna look really weird? I like it. And the second round of trebles, the second armhole, I just did what I did for the first one and sort of just went with it, but I actually ended up with the pattern working out just fine, so I don't really know what I did. There's 25 of the clusters on each of them, so I think they look relatively balanced, or, you know, it's not like one's stretching out massively and the other isn't. Yeah, I quite like it with this little green dress, actually. I've got to do the fronts and the necks, and it gives extra directions for shaping around the neck and the fronts, because obviously you've got curves here, and the way the collar sits, you need to get more doodahs in. And so it does give you directions for that, but it's quite general. But if required, work an extra stitch or two at the corner, that sort of thing. So it says, along the front and bottom of the jacket, work as round 5, but at the neck, work 4 trebles in each space. But does that include this diagonal? Not entirely clear, and I haven't actually got the book with me. I've just got a picture of the instructions, so I might have to go and look up what the finished one looks like and whether I can count 4 here. But yeah, I think it's going to look really cute, but I think I'm done for today. I want to go to bed. Now, I've got both armholes crocheted up to the contrast colour, which I've now decided on, and I've done something I don't usually do, which is I've bought new yarn for this, and it's acrylic, and yes, it is coming off of my coupon allowance for the year, even though it's not for me. If you don't know about the coupons system, watch this video. This is what I bought. I was in a charity shop the other day, and I think mostly inspired by, I've been working on this Morn cardigan. I've been pronouncing it in my best RP English as moan, and it's German. It's a German word, so it should be more like morn. Anyway, inspired by my colourway for that cardigan, which is sort of very heathery, I found this very heathery pink Signet acrylic, and it's quite good quality. This was new in the charity shop, so it's not like a second-hand yarn, in which case I could get round the coupons, but I just thought it would sort of be a nice combination with the grey. And I found out as well the character is wearing green and purple. I don't know whether we've decided when she's wearing the green and when she's wearing the purple, so it had to be a colour that went with both. And I thought, well, this would work no matter what. If it's like coordinating with the purple or whether it's contrasting with the green, a sort of lilac-y, purpley pink would work fine. So I still think I'm going to do the grey around the neck and the bottom first, and then I'm going to add this. Now, this was 100 grams, so buying 100 grams for something that I'm probably going to use like 10 grams of. Mind you, crochet eats so much yarn that my yarn quantity estimations for crochet are always massively off. I don't think it's going to take 100 grams though. There's going to be some left, and then it will be incorporated into the stash for stash busting. So it might become a dog jumper or something like that. I'm going to crack on with crocheting this with the grey, which I have here, and we'll see where we get to today. So here it is, she's finished. I've just added a few more details, having done the pink edging. I wasn't entirely sure when I first put these two together that I was going to like the way it looked, and even when I saw it made up, I was like, oh, I don't know, because I don't know how I feel about the light. My preference, I guess, for anything visually would be to have a light body and a dark trim, because dark things recede and light things jump out at you, and so I feel it just sort of jumps a bit. But yeah, actually it's grown on me. So I've added a crochet chain to make some ties. So I've kind of guessed where to put these buttons. Now, I've had a bit of a dilemma with these buttons because I went through my button stash and I found a whole load of these sort of military style buttons, and I thought I better just Google what I'm putting on this costume. So I did the reverse image search, and these are Hessian buttons. They are German military buttons, but they're reproduction from the 18th century or so. So I think we're in the clear, well, as much as you can be in the clear when we're talking about anything in history, but they're hopefully not glaringly offensive, at least. Part of the reason I went for them was because I thought, firstly, they were the right size, but also they do give it that sort of folky feel. So I've put them just through on a crochet chain through the holes in the work. And I thought then that makes it really adjustable. So whoever's wearing it you know, can put it higher or lower depending on how big their bust is. And I mean, like, if they want to take them off and space them further apart on a bit of ribbon. And yeah, I just thought it would be more flexible. I also thought I preferred having it like this, sort of, so that they meet edge to edge rather than overlapping it like that. I just thought that was nicer, made more of the edging. And also obviously when you've got ties like this, they meet edge to edge, so have it meeting edge to edge at the neck and then overlapping, I thought might distort it a little bit. But I mean, as a piece of construction knitting, it's so clever because it's literally a strip, 2 strips, and then you join it continuously at this, not continuously, you join it at the underarm so that it becomes a loop. And yes, getting the tension of the crochet right around the fronts was a little bit... doing it around the neck, I think, was the hardest bit, and across the bottom here, because along the selvage edges, I had the selvage stitch to stitch into, and so every selvage stitch became like the chain, whereas doing it across the bottom, I sort of had to be like, okay, I was picking up every 2 stitches for every 3, but it seems to have worked fine. And so I don't know whether that's just because I got lucky with my crochet tension sort of matching my knit tension and the hook I used or whatever. I don't really know, because I'm not that good at, I don't know enough about crochet to really say why it worked so well for me. But yeah, I just think it's really cute, and I really hope it's going to add a little bit of character to the costume that it's to go with. So I have considered putting it on to do a reveal, but I don't have anything vaguely historical to go with it that's right. You know, I could put it on over my 1840s ball gown, but I don't think that would work. And it wouldn't work with any of my other historical costumes. So I think I'm just going to end this video by giving you some close-ups so that you can see all the unique little quirks. And as far as my first attempt at a Victorian knitting pattern, despite this being a modern translation, it was still pretty free in the way that Victorian knitting patterns are, in that it sort of was like knit to be the right length, and particularly with the crochet, sort of, there were some hints and tips, but it was still very much that like attitude of it doesn't matter if it's even, or you know, work until it's right sort of thing. You do so much more by feel and instinct. I had maybe expected that from a modern interpretation of a Victorian knitting pattern, it would have been more like, oh, you're looking for 24 around the armhole, roughly. So it was things like around the neck, it said to do 4 triple crochet instead of 3 in each of the spaces, but it didn't say where the neck started, whether that meant the front and the back or just the back, things like that. And so because where you've worked around it, you've sort of lost where the neck starts. I don't know, it was just one of those things where it still was pretty loose and fancy free in its instructions. If I'm able to get a picture of the actress in it before this video goes live, I'll include that here so you can sort of see the vibe we were going for. But apart from that, yeah, I think I'll just end with some shots. Oh, look at that end there that needs trimming. But apart from that, I think that's it for this one. So thanks very much for watching. See you next time.